Dear students, we are continuing with our course on geometric design, and on the module 2 we started with the cross sectional elements, and towards the end of those cross sectional elements we are going to talk about the road furniture which needs to be provided so as to ensure the safety of the road users. If we go back and look at what we were talking about in the previous interaction, we started with the walkability index for a particular area to see whether it is walkable or not, and then we started with the pedestrian crossing facilities. And under the pedestrian crossing facilities, we talked about the crossing speed, and we also talked about the warrants and few things related to the intersections. In today's presentation, we are first of all going to close the crossing facilities for pedestrians. We will try to see the various types of facility environment and the warrants etc. if they are left. Then we will move to the another important element of the cross section, which is a service road. And if you remember, we have looked at this when we started with this particular module, where lot many profiles were shown to you, and many of those profiles it said with or without a service road. So, the service road is quite an important aspect, needs to be looked at. And towards the end, we will be having an introduction of the type of road furniture which needs to be provided, and then we will see again an introduction for the pavement markings, which we are going to continue then in the next interaction. So, let us first of all close our crosswalk facilities for pedestrians. In the previous interaction, we talked about the warrants which defined that when and when not the facility for the crossing needs to be provided. Here specifically we are going to talk about the grade separation of a facility, which can be in terms of a pedestrian subway or a foot over bridge being provided at a location where lot many activities are there, at the same time the traffic is also there, and we have looked in that direction the PV square values also. Now, what it says is that if you are on an urban expressway or a high speed corridor where the vehicle speeds are going to be very high, in those cases it is always better to go for a grade separation. Obviously, when you are talking about this, then the speeds are going to be more than 60 kilometers per hour, and they are going to touch something like 100 or 120 kilometers per hour, and at the same time the number of lanes which are going to be there on this facility, they are multiple lanes which may be 4 or more. And if you have a combination of the total distance which is to be traveled to cross along with the speeds, it becomes too hazardous for the pedestrians to cross it at the grade. At grade crossing should not be there in such environment. If you have a railway line, then in that case the railway overbridge needs to be there. So, that is another thing being talked. It again speaks in the form of the psychological gap size, and it says that if the psychological gap size is less than 0.77 seconds or 0.98 seconds for 4 lane or 6 lane divided system respectively, then in that case again we should go for a grade separation. And this is also being transformed into the vehicular flow, because it is more easier to count or calculate the vehicular flow on a particular road, and it says that if it is beyond 4200 or 6300 PCUs per hour for the two categories of the roads, then also we should go for a grade separated system. So, this is how we need to look at. Now, when we are providing any of the system, whether it is at grade or it is grade separated, one aspect which needs to be looked at is the level of service, and this level of service that is being defined say in terms of a wait time at the curb side. So, when you are standing on the footpath and you are waiting, that there is an opportunity where the vehicles are having a spacing and you can just cross at that particular time if it is not a signalized location, then for the basis of this wait time the 6 categorizations have been done from A to F, and obviously A is the highest category where the waiting time is going to be the lowest, and it is being defined as less than or equals to 3 seconds. Whereas, if you are talking about the worst condition, it says that you are there for 90 seconds or more than 90 seconds. So, that is a difference which is going to be there. Now, this is being talked in terms of a pedestrian delay also. When we say pedestrian delay and you are having a facility, you are here to cross it and there is traffic continuously moving on this particular road, and you are trying to cross at this location, and there is no discipline being available means people are not stopping their vehicles for a person to cross. Now, there are two cases which can be there. There are no vehicles and there are lot of vehicles. When no vehicle is there, then this pedestrian is going to cross to the other side in the minimum time frame, and that becomes the minimum becomes base. And with respect to base, when the traffic is there and the pedestrian is again crossing that, then obviously the person may be going to take a little more time than that, and that is what is going to define the delay here. So, that crossing delay which is there is being taken into 4 categories, and it is again being talked in terms of seconds, where in the last or the worst condition we are saying that it is somewhere between 26 to 45 seconds, and that is how the level of service of a facility has been defined here. Now, in the case of Indo-SCM, again it is talking about the wait time, and it is also giving the conditions with respect to the categorization of the road. And when we look at this categorization of the road, the same is being used as we have talked previously, but for the two segments of the population, they are defining this average wait times which are changing from somewhere around 5 seconds to as high as 10 seconds. So, that is a variation, and that all depends upon which particular facility we are talking about, and if as soon as the facility is increasing its size, then this wait time is also increasing, because when you are standing on the side, you feel that you have to cross 2 lanes or you have to cross 4 lanes or 3 lanes, and accordingly you will try to have more of the spacing with the vehicles when you start crossing, and that is where this wait time is going to increase here. If we look at some specific things with respect to the design of a facility, and when we are talking here the facility, we are talking about a crosswalk. Now, different things can be there, and we have to see that what are the associated features which needs to be provided in those cases. Say there is a zebra crossing here, pedestrians are going to move this way or that way. There is a footpath here, a connectivity has been created between the carriageway at which the zebra crossing is being provided. So, this level is L is equals to 0 and L is equals to 0. Here the level of this footpath is plus 150 mm with respect to the carriageway. So, we are going to design a ramp here. We have discussed about it, and we said that a minimum 1 in 12 and acceptably 1 in 15 should be the grade we should be provided here. It is being flared, and that flare is 1 in 10 we are going to provide. Along with these things, what you can see is that the tactile tiles or the warning tiles are also being provided. So, we have the things here which defines that you are approaching something beyond this and should be careful about it. And then it allows the person who has nothing to do with the crossing to cross along. So, that is another category of tiles. So, there is a sort of a direction tiles which are taking the person straight. But at the location where the crossing is there, again the warning has been issued to the person who is differently abled, that at this location there is something, some junction is there. So, the person if desirous to take a turn can take a turn, again the set of tiles and the bollards are there, and then we are going on a ramp, and when they get to the carriageway, again the set of tiles are being provided. And because somebody can come in this direction wrongly, so a set of tiles are also being provided just before the flare. So, they are being warned again and again in different forms. So, that is a type of design or type of facility needs to be provided. Now, in the case 2, what we can see is that we have a footpath here as well as a footpath on the other side. We have a carriageway on this one, and then there is a crossing facility being provided at a location, but the level is same in both of these cases. That means, the pedestrian who is here can just cross to the other side without getting down or without getting up at the connectivities with the carriageway. Obviously, when this is being done, then the ramp has to be provided on either side of this crossing facility, and this is a vehicular ramp which is designed for 1:8. So, that is another aspect being done. You can see that how the warning tiles, directional tiles or the tactile tiles, they have been oriented so as to define the path to the differently abled people or pedestrians. And there is an element which is being placed here, which is a traffic calming element. When we say traffic calming element, here we are more interested to reduce the speed of the vehicles which are coming, so that when they come in this area and the pedestrians are there who are crossing, that interaction should not be too hazardous here. So, that is what we are trying to look at. Let us see here in this one what is the additional thing which is being added. If you see, the additional thing being added is here. They are the transverse bar markings, and these transverse bar markings, they are actually the set of 6 lines at one point of a time being placed at a specified distance for the traffic which is coming from here, to warn them that they are reaching certain location which is probably going to be hazardous if not taken care of. So, they want the drivers to reduce the speed, see around, and then cross the coming facility which is being provided. Rest of the features, depending on whether you are going to provide at grade system, you are going to provide a raised crosswalk, the design is going to be there. You can see another feature here, there is a median and there is a gap in the median, and that gap in the median we have discussed, like 2 meters by 2 meters or 2 meters by 1.2 meters minimum has to be provided, so that the pedestrian can stand here and they are looking at the traffic which is coming from this direction. As soon as they find a gap, they will cross to the other side. Now, this particular design, if you see the yellow area, this yellow area defines our footpath width, and we talked about that this should be desirably 1.8 meters, and if we can provide 2 meters is good enough, and minimum that should be 1.5 meters, depending on there is a restriction in the roadway width. All of these things we talked about. At this point where the crossing has been provided, the width of the facility has been increased, and this has been increased roughly by around 2 to 2.5 meters. Now, when we do this, when we are coming on the carriageway, then this is known as bulb out, as I have shown you in the previous photographs too. Now, when you are doing this bulb out and we are getting this additional 2 to 2.5 meters, the utility of that is that we can utilize it for the parking of vehicles, and depending on what type of vehicles are going to be parked, it can be parallel to the curb side like this, or it can be perpendicular to the curb side, depending on that you have smaller size of vehicles. So, that is a facility, that is an additional feature which can be created, and this may be required at certain locations because there is a lot of activity on this side. So, developmental activities are there, or say there is a shopping area or something, then the people who are coming to this area, they will require to have parking of their vehicles, and if it is properly being designed, then it becomes safe, convenient and an efficient system for all. This is a case where a bus stop is there, and with respect to bus stop, we find that there is an area where the bus can come and stop. So, this is a box being marked for the stopping of a bus. The person who is sitting at this point, the vision is going to be this. So, the clear vision with respect to the movements on the footpath and as well as with the sidewalk or the crosswalk connectivities needs to be looked at. There are going to be certain facilities here because people are waiting for a bus, and then that is where there can be vendors or there can be drinking water. We have looked at the design where we talked about the wide sidewalk versus narrow sidewalk. In this case, if the pedestrians are there, that they can utilize the space at the back of the bus shelter and they need not to move through this particular area. So, that is another way of looking and providing the facility. Now, let us look at the another type of an element which needs to be provided, and that is what is being defined as a service road. Now, if you look at a service road, here there are certain photographs being made available. In case 1, what you find is that the main carriageway is on this side. So, you have one directional traffic here, another directional traffic on the other side, and you have a median in between. So, it can be a raised median, it can be a flush median being provided or whatever it is. And we have a service road provided on one side and this one, which can be a 2-lane system or which can be a single lane system, depending on how much traffic is there and what type of an activity is there on the side of that particular road. And these two things, they have been separated out by way of provision of either the drain or the curb or median. there can be different ways in which it can be done. It can also be talked in terms of a verge which can be occupying the space for different utilities to be provided along the length of the road. So, all of these things may be there. Here in the case 2, if we look at, what you found is again you have a main highway on this one, and then there are the connecting roads which are coming and that is taking some traffic. So, we have a service road on this side and we have a service road on the other side of this main facility. And the connectivities or the entry or exits, they will be there at a specific location through which either the vehicles can get out of the system from the main carriageway or can get into the main carriageway from the service road. You look at the another one. So, where we have the main carriageway here and the service road here, and what you can find is that this is being separated by way of a median which is being developed, and it is being developed with the trees and plantations also, and at the same time there is one another path being provided between that which can be utilized by cyclists. So, again the separation and the multi uses are there in this particular type of design. In the case 4, what you found is that there is an elevated system being provided, and the connectivity of this elevated system with the side development is to be looked at, and that is where this road is there which is going to have a connectivity at this point, and as it goes away then this remains here and take care of the traffic which is there, which is being induced or attracted to the local development. So, when we have these different type of things which are happening, then how we can classify or how we can define these roads, maybe they are all same or they can be defined in different manners, is what we can probably look at. So, maybe one way of doing that is to say that they are simply a service road, or it can be defined as a frontage road, or it can also be defined as a slip lane. Now, here when we are looking at this, any of these categories, whatever these are there, what type of traffic it is going to cater, that traffic is mainly local in nature, which has something to do with the site development, and it has nothing to do with the main highway where it is being provided for a through traffic. So, that difference is there. Now, when we are talking about a road which is provided along a main highway and it passes through a habitation, but the habitation is at a distance away, then they are purely being defined as a service road. But if the habitation and the development is just at the edge of that particular road, then they are usually defined as a frontage roads. And when we are talking about the elevated systems, elevated corridors, and the connectivity of those elevated corridors are being provided with respect to the site development at a specified location, then that is through a slip road. So, that sort of a division is going to be there when we are looking at these service roads, and that is what we have seen in the previous photographs. Now, when we are designing these roads, you are having a main highway. So, this is main carriageway, and you have a service road on this side and say a service road on this side. Then what should be the width of this service road? Now, this width of the service road is going to be defined on different factors like type of development, the directional movement, and the future expansion which can be there of the road system. Now, when we say the type of development, actually this is attracting the traffic, or it is also going to generate the traffic also. So, both of the things can be there in this case. So, whatever is the development which is there, if it is just at this edge, then there is going to be an induced traffic because of that. Now, if we are trying to see that this should provide a facility in both the directions, then the width is going to be different. If it is not so, if we can say that traffic is not so high at the moment, then we can probably look at some intermediate condition. So, the minimum width which can be there is not a single lane width, is actually 5.5 meters, which is an intermediate lane width, which needs to be provided in any of the urban area. And as soon as you provide this 5.5 meters, it will be able to allow the traffic which is moving in two directions. But if it is only a 3.5 or 3.75 meters, then it becomes a bit difficult. Now, when this is being provided when you have a carriageway which is say 5.5 meters. Now, this is going to be protected on the sides and where we are having the shoulders on this side, and at a minimum level the shoulders shall be 1 meters wide. So, that means now what you roadway which you are going to have is 5.5 meters plus 2 meters is 7.5 meter of the roadway is going to be there at a minimum level. The another condition which can be there is that you have this carriageway which is at a minimum level 5.5 meters wide, and because there is a development, there is a possibility that we provide a footpath on one side, and there may or may not be a footpath, or if it is an open area then there can be a shoulder on the other side. Now, when we are looking at this footpath, then the minimum width which needs to be given is 1.5 meters. So, accordingly now the total space which needs to be acquired is going to increase. So, we have to see that for what type of users, what type of facilities needs to be embedded there, and accordingly the total width which needs to be acquired to provide this facility has to be ascertained. Now, when we are providing this facility and when we said that there is a main carriageway on the other side, now this junction of the service road versus the main carriageway also needs to be looked at, and that is where the segregation is one thing which is to be done. This segregation can be in terms of an open area being provided which is quite wide, but protected in a sense that there should not be a movement across these two facilities at any of the location other than the entry and exits being designed for providing that thing. Or there can be a fence which can be provided so as to stop that type of a thing, or it can also be done by way of providing the wide medians at this level, which in the future can be reduced in size so as to accommodate a lane if so required either on this side or on the other side. That means either for a local traffic or for a through traffic, whatever is a condition. Now, when we are looking at this width and when you have a multi-lane system, as I have shown you in the photographs also, in those cases the paved portion on the service road shall not be 5.5 meter, rather it should be minimum 7.5 meters. And when you have this 7.5 meters as a paved area, then with an unpaved area on the sides or with the footpath on the sides, say if you have a footpath which is 1.5 meter on both the sides, then it means 3 meters is going to be added, and that will make a minimum roadway width of 10.5 meters. So, in the case of multi-lane highways, this is another aspect which needs to be taken care of, and the design should be done accordingly. Future expansion I have already talked about, and depending on whether there is a requirement and there is a possibility of doing that in the next 5 or 10 years, we have to see that how much space is to be occupied, and this space usually is being kept in the median area because rest of the area are going to be developed very fast. So, if you have provided a wide median between the main carriageway and the service road, then this possibility is there. Now, these service roads, they are designed for a speed of 40 kilometers per hour, and there may be a possibility that these service roads are getting merged into an area, or they are getting diverted from a particular main road or a highway. In all of those cases, any location where there is a transition, then in the case of those transitions, a rate is going to be there. We have talked about this rate previously also when we talked about the medians as well as the shoulders or the flaring of the system, and there we said that it should be minimum 1 in 15 to 1 in 20. So, that is the same thing being defined here. It says that if there is a transition and the widths are going to be different, then this rate can be utilized. Now, the another thing is that when we say that I have a main highway which is divided system, the traffic is moving in either of these directions and this speed is going to be 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. There is a service road on this side. Obviously, at some point of a time there is going to be a connectivity between the service road. So, maybe we have this exit or this entry from the main highway to the service road being provided. Now, when we are doing this, then how we are going to design is another aspect. This particular connectivity needs to be designed. Now, traffic here is moving at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. We talked about that a design speed here is 40 kilometers per hour. That means the differential between the two services is 60 kilometers per hour, and we need to design the facility, this connectivity for this particular differential. This can be like we are going in or we are going out of a system. So, say if we are going out of a system from a main highway, then probably something like this is going to be there, that from here we take left, then keeps moving and then get to the finally the service road, which is being segregated by way of the median, etc. So, it means the vehicle will start deaccelerating here, will be cruising at a certain speed and then will come to a speed slowly, which is the speed of a service road. And the same thing may happen when you are coming out of and getting into a particular system here, say maybe like the one which is being defined. So, proper entry and exit ramps needs to be designed, and when we are designing that, we will take care of this differential. Now, another aspect which may happen is that you are providing a road system which is also having the service roads, and what we found is that there is a river here. Now, in this case, how to design and how to provide a continuous facility is what we are talking. Now, when we are looking at this, it all depends on what is the span for this bridge which needs to be provided at this location. Now, if the span is less than 60 meters and there is a requirement to take the service road to the other side of this particular bridge, then what it says is that a separate two lane structure should be created apart from the main bridge, which is going to be utilized by those vehicles which are having local nature of movement. But if it is more than 60 meters in span, then the service road needs to be merged into the main highway. That means, at a bridge location, say this is a bridge location. So, this is going to be the width on the bridge, whatever is the number of lanes, etc., are there on the basis of that. Now, all these number of lanes are going to be there on this main highway before and after the bridge. So, whether you are on this side or you are on the side, but at the same time we are talking about a service road. Now, when we have to get to this particular alignment of the bridge, now this service road has to be merged into that particular alignment or that particular width which is going to be there on the bridge. So, this is being done, and after that it becomes the same constant width of the bridge as which is going to be there, and this distance from the start of the bridge and by which we have got the merging already being done and we have the section of the bridge, that should be at least 50 meters before the structure. And obviously, when you are doing this, then you are going to do in 1 in 15 rate, as we have talked previously. So, this is how we are going to provide the service roads and look at different things. Now, let us come to the road furniture and see that what are the various things which we are going to talk about under the road furniture category. We are going to talk about the pavement markings. These pavement markings will be related to the different locations, different things. It can be in terms of the continuous markings or it can be in terms of the non-continuous markings with different colors at different locations, in terms of boxes, in terms of arrows, in terms of say the word messages. There can be different things, or there may be object markings which can be talked in along with that. The road signs which are mainly visible to you more on the road than markings, because you simply keep looking towards the top. Then the road delineators which can be provided, the speed breakers, because that is a one utility which is usually going to be there in the urban area, and then the kilometer stone is the another thing we are going to talk about. So, we are going to look at these things one by one, and we will be starting with the pavement markings. So, here I am going to just give you a classification of those markings, and then we are going to stop in a slide or two. So, we are going to talk about the longitudinal, which is going to be along the carriageway, and like the one simplest thing which you have seen is the center line marking or the marking for different lanes on a multi-lane highways. The transverse markings which are used so as to control the traffic. So, say the stop line at an intersection, hazard markings, any object is there. So, you have to differentiate, or there are different type of road systems which are getting in and out of each other. So, the merging and diverging conditions are going to be there. We will look at it. The block markings are there, different type of blocks which can be used. One example is like in terms of a zebra, which is an alternate black and white strip. Arrows being defined on the road, which defines in which particular direction you can go and which particular lane you can use for that. Say word messages which also give an input to the driver, or for different type of facilities what type of markings can be there. So, we are going to look at all of these things one by one. And in the case of longitudinal markings, when you talk about that, then there again the number of things, as you can see in this photograph, you have a marking at this point, then another marking which is dividing the total width of the carriageway into different parts. Okay, so, all of these things, then there is another marking on towards the side. So, we have center lines, traffic lanes, border lines, then there are possibilities with respect to certain controls or with respect to the specific vehicles. We are going to look at that. And in the case of the nodes at which all of these longitudinal markings are reaching, there we are going to have the junction related markings. So, it can be like a stop line, give way line, the crossings for pedestrians or cyclists, or merging or diverging arrows, word messages, lane changes, all of those things are going to be there. You can see that there is a pedestrian crossing, there is a median being marked, there is an arrow, there is a marking on this side. Okay, so, all of these things are going to be discussed one by one. So, we stop with these things and we are going to continue with our markings in the next interaction onward.